Stop bashing beneficiaries. There's been a few calls recently for the PM to stop bashing the poor. Sherry Taylor wrote this article saying he needs to create schemes in outlying districts, creating jobs, so we can spend our way out of the recession, rather than giving tax cuts to the rich and attacking the poor. There's nothing like a good beneficiary bash to get the banjos a-picking though. You can just about bet on there being a few examples leaked to the media by WINC each month, so that the bigots can really get their hate on. Being that poor people are just so evil and all. It's sort of like throwing a lamb to the slaughter, to keep them mean and get them hungry for more. But I digress. The real issue here should be about the millions of dollars stolen internally by WINC and ACC employees, not the few thousand a couple of beneficiaries steal. But no, the New Zealand media focuses on the few cases where beneficiaries defraud the system and totally ignore the bigger story. It's like they're completely unaware of the fact that their arse is on fire, talking about a few fraudulent beneficiaries while millions get stolen by white-collar criminals. Nothing like a good propaganda machine to really get the fascism flowing, huh? It's not just the fervent disinformation to feed the sheeple and bigoted Neanderthals. The government's lies extend to spin doctoring to try and further their privatization scam, quoting incorrect figures to trick the public into believing that we have to sell our assets because we're way in debt. Jackal recently quoted New Zealand's total debt position, including private sector debt, not just the government's debt, to justify selling the things my grandparents built and paid for to foreign ownership. Such a bold-faced lie delivered in all the cunning beguile of a master manipulator. I mean, give credit where credit is due. Jackal is good at one thing at least. It's a pity that doesn't help us much. Jackal should know that the bulk of foreign debt is owed by the banks, most of which New Zealanders do not own. The government's net foreign debt is relatively small. So chalk that one up to yet another in a long list of lies. Did you know that it's an old mob trick to get you into debt so that they can extort as much money from you as they possibly can? Often the gangster will just make up the debt, and if you don't pay, well, you know the story. Is anybody keeping tabs on the broken campaign promises and blatant lying by the gangster elite so far? Or are we just so enamored with the abuse that it has rendered our brains completely dysfunctional? A bit like battered wife syndrome, you don't think there is anywhere else to go. Materia Turii from the Green Party of Aotearoa says, everyone else is having to tighten their belts and Jackal is cutting staff and creating unemployment in order to apparently tighten the belt of government. Annette King commenting about the WWG report says, advocating for incentives and programs to get people into work. Many of these existed under Labour but National abolished or slashed them, such as the training incentive allowance for solo mums on the DPP, scholarships, dedicated WINS case managers who built up knowledge of individual clients and were better able to assist them, ECE funding, strategic skills and training program funding. So even with the huge disaster that is currently unfolding, there are people who recognize the looming disaster on the horizon that is national's welfare policies. Have I mentioned that Jackal works for Merrill Lynch yet? Earning the nickname the Smiling Assassin. And did you know that the Merrill Lynch mob advertised itself as the #1 trader of derivatives in the early 2000s, the very cause of the current financial recession? Well, blow me down, how about that then? Even as the head honcho, it would seem to me that Jackal's credibility is questionable. I would question it if I could actually find it, but there seems to be a complete void where our Prime Minister credibility should be. Now the right-wing evangelists are calling for a halt to debating these issues because of the earthquake, like a natural disaster should let the national gangsters off the hook and we can all just lap at the propaganda of our gangster boss taking photo opportunities in front of the misery that is the Christchurch earthquake. Just like any good soulless politician, Jackal delivers his scripted broadcasts in all their V-like insincerity. Have we seen any emotion at all yet? I'm wondering if Jackal thinks all the victims in the recent earthquake, who are now out of jobs and have to go on a benefit, choose to do so. You know, blame the victims and all that. It will be interesting to see if the gangsters use this crisis as an excuse to slash and burn the welfare state. I can hear them sharpening their knives already.